swapping out that barrel. Oh my god. You were born for this. Come on back around, dude. Yeah! We got it! Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to the weekly show Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use in Battlefield 5. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon, accessories, roles you'd want me to pick, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for next week's episode. Today's top comment comes from Luke Harmon, who says, "The Mountain Trooper German Machine Gunner, the MG42 with the bipod forest camo leaves and branches." Now, I did show off some of the forest camo leaves in one of my weapon customization videos, except that footage was recorded from an internal build with Battlefield 5, and those skins have not actually been added to the game yet. I think they're saving them for some of the Tides of War content. So unfortunately, I couldn't put any of the forest camo on this weapon, so we've got kind of a stock looking MG42, but I did upgrade it all the way with all the amazing specializations that take the MG42 from a 50 round beast to a 250 round beast. Now, for those of you who want to know what specialization tree I picked, I went left side with recoil buffer, then I went with the extended belt for 250 rounds, and then we went with chrome lining so the gun doesn't overheat as fast, and then the last one is incendiary bullets, which does added damage to aircraft, which is a fun perk on any maps that have airplanes flying by. They certainly won't be expecting to get shot down by an MG42, but they are more than capable of taking out some of the smaller aircraft. The rest of the progression tree doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me, because if you want to use the faster rate of fire upgrade that takes you from about 1,000 rounds per minute to 1,200 rounds per minute, which is very cool, you have to sacrifice your 250 round belt mag for 50 rounds, which lasts you barely any time at all. I think that side of the tree might be something I would consider picking if maybe the MG42 started with a standard 100 or 150 rounds, and that way I could use it a bit more aggressively. But 50 rounds at 1,200 round per minute rate of fire, the MG42 really isn't going to mow down too many people before you have to reload. So I just didn't see that path as a viable option. Now, medium machine guns, there's only two of them in the game, the MG34 and the MG42. They require a bit of a different mindset when playing. You have to play defensively. In fact, if you're playing the Grand Operations game mode and you're on the defensive side, that's probably the best possible scenario, which is where some of the most amazing clips here actually come from, is playing defensively with it. Playing offensively is very difficult. I tried it. I did not have a lot of success with it. And the bipod system in Battlefield 5 right now is not particularly well refined. So if you're trying to deploy it on certain objects, obstacles, stuff like that, you constantly get unequipped with your bipod, which makes it very frustrating to try and move around a lot and deploy quickly to engage targets. So it's just easier to be set up defensively. If DICE fixes their bipod system, it could become more viable as an aggressive offensive weapon, but for the time being, I would recommend only using it defensively. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with the basic medium machine gun abilities, you cannot aim down sights with these weapons unless their bipods are deployed. So when you try and right click or ADS from a standing position, you'll just get a slightly zoomed version of hipfire. This can be viable in extreme close quarters, but the hipfire is so inaccurate that sometimes you'll be spraying down like 50 rounds at somebody and wondering why they're not dying. The hipfire is very inaccurate, and I don't recommend using it unless you just absolutely have no other options in extreme close quarters. At medium range, you may as well not even bother. You may as well go for the dolphin dive prone and try and take them out that way, or just disengage and retreat from combat altogether. Medium machine guns also have better bullet penetration capabilities than other weapons, and they also have the ammo to really search for enemies behind solid or semi-solid cover. Houses, wooden buildings are not solid cover. This is something that actually gets quite fun, and when combining it with the machine gunner role, you can spot enemies on the other side of wood and objects like that if you suppress them properly. So you can see here I'm shooting down behind this wall, and I get a nice spot over there, take them out through cover that otherwise would have stopped smaller caliber bullets. You can also combine this with smoke grenades, as was recommended with the loadout choice here, as the smoke will give you a nice visual cover, but then you can spot people through the smoke using your machine gunner role. And so this becomes a useful little perk, although what you have to watch out for is people just shooting back at the tracer rounds from your machine gun, as those will be very visible when firing through smoke. And so you just got to watch out for that. Know if you're laying down lines of machine gun fire, everybody on the enemy team is going to see it. So often getting up and moving in between firefights is an important thing, just depending on where your specific location is. Sometimes you really can lock down one entire avenue. Your biggest threat are going to be snipers, since they are no longer suppressed in terms of making their rifles less accurate. They can return very accurate fire on you. So a good sniper at range will always be a good machine gunner at range. And so that's your biggest counter, your biggest threat. In close quarters, unless you're bipoded, pretty much every gun in the game is going to out damage you because of the insane inaccuracy of the MG42. Unless you're like face to face with somebody, the MG42 is just the last thing you want to have in close quarter combat. It can certainly kill somebody in a pinch or the unsuspecting player, but you just don't want to pick this gun if that's the kind of combat you know you're going into. So last ditch effort, fine, but as a choice for that specific kind of combat, absolutely not. Now when comparing this to the MG34, the MG34 is a bit more accurate than this weapon. It doesn't have as intensive recoil, but it also doesn't have the same rate of fire. I'll pick the MG42 over the MG34. It's just a bit more fun. It's certainly a much more iconic gun, and heating up those barrels and swapping them out in intense situations is just damn cool looking. I mean, this weapon has a cool factor over the MG34 for sure. And honestly, if you're bipoded up and you're trying to mow people down, then you want the gun that does the highest damage per second possible. But you might have seen me straining to down targets at much further ranges, just because this gun, even while bipoded, does have some pretty unruly recoil, and you're going to experience that when trying to like pinpoint somebody at extreme ranges. Sometimes somebody will be just barely peeking over a ledge, and getting that headshot can be really hard at like 200 plus meters. That's where I think the MG34 might have an advantage. And just look at it chew up those three guys right there. When players clump up or line up for you, that's when the MG42 really shines. It doesn't care how many guys are in front of it. It will kill them all incredibly fast, provided that they're not set up to headshot you immediately. So it is just an awesome gun when in the perfect situation. But it's one of the most situational weapons in the game as well, you know, next to sniper rifles or something like that. This gun just isn't good in a lot of run and gun situations. You got to be set up, you got to be campy, you got to change your play style to work well with this weapon. When it comes to optics, you see me using the anti-air sights on here. The anti-air sights do give you a little bit of extra magnification, I believe, over the standard iron sights. I was trying out the yellow dot sight or the reflector sight, and it was just a little bit too dark for me personally. I think the anti-air sights give you pretty darn good accuracy, don't obstruct your visibility very much, and I was enjoying those more overall. So I like those ones, but the optical preference is very, very personal, so play around with it, figure out which one you like. Now, of course, not everybody can just hop out there and try out the MG42. You gotta achieve support rank 20, which will take you a while. This will be a bit more of a veteran player weapon, or somebody who really is just focusing on the support class at the start of the game. And you're gonna get a lot of other really good support guns along the way. So changing your playstyle to the MG42 is probably the hardest thing, because if you're running around with like the FG42, which is what you get unlocked before the MG42, you'll be very used to that weapon being an effective running gun, close quarter to medium range weapon that you can shoot from standing up, no problem. But the MG42 does not play anything like it. So that's probably the biggest challenge of this weapon, is adapting your playstyle to work well with it and figure out how to use it properly, because it's not one of those weapons that you can pick up in any situation and do well, or know that you're a good player and feel like, you know what, I'm a good enough player, I'm going to make this weapon work in this situation no matter what. You can't do that with the MG42. It's situational. It'll take your skill and throw it out the window if you use it in a map that's not well set up for it. Anyway, the MG42 is a hell of a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. It'll be a lot more fun if DICE updates the bipod system. And it's going to take you a while to unlock this gun if you are looking forward to it. Don't forget to leave your comments down below for next week's episode of Loadout. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.